"I can sleep in the barn," begged the mail-order bride. The rancher locked the house, said no. But she had grown up in a small apartment in the bustling heart of the city, surrounded by the constant noise of traffic, chatter, and neon lights. Life had been a series of routines for her: work at the office, evenings spent with a few close friends, weekends at local cafes or the park. Yet beneath that seemingly normal life, she had always felt a deep sense of restlessness, a yearning for something different, something real. That yearning had led her to a bold decision: to answer an advertisement for a mail-order bride. It was not an easy choice. Anna had considered every possible outcome, every potential danger, yet a strange part of her was drawn to the idea of a life far removed from the city chaos. A life where mornings began with fresh air and the soft sound of nature, rather than blaring car horns and sirens. The journey had been long and exhausting. She had traveled by bus, train, and then a small regional flight that left her slightly queasy from turbulence. When she finally reached the small town near the ranch, she had been told she would have to travel another hour by dirt road to reach her destination. The bus ride was slow, winding through hills, forests, and open fields. Each mile seemed to carry her further from the life she had always known and deeper into the unknown. As she peered out of the window, she tried to keep her nerves in check, but her palms were damp, and her stomach churned with anxiety and anticipation. When she finally arrived at the ranch, the sun was dipping below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The ranch itself was larger than she had imagined from the photographs she had seen. There were wide stretches of land, fences that disappeared into the distance, and a barn that stood like a quiet sentinel at the edge of the property. The house was modest, sturdy, and well-maintained, but it radiated a sense of solitude. Anna stepped off the dirt path and took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of hay, earth, and pine. It was a smell entirely foreign to her, yet oddly comforting. Tom, the rancher, was already waiting on the porch. He was a tall, broad-shouldered man with rough hands that suggested years of hard labor. His face was lined, not just from age but from experience, the kind of experience that comes from a life spent outdoors, facing challenges that the city could never offer. He wore a plaid shirt, worn jeans, and boots that had clearly seen better days. His expression was calm but cautious as he studied her arrival. "Hello," Anna said softly, unsure of how to begin. She felt self-conscious in the quiet expanse of the ranch. The words sounded smaller than she had intended, swallowed up by the open air. "Hi," Tom replied, his voice steady but measured. He held out a hand, which she shook briefly. It was firm, the grip of someone accustomed to hard work rather than polite city manners. Anna tried to smile. "I'm Anna, I came as arranged." Tom nodded, giving a small, almost imperceptible smile. "I'm Tom, welcome to the ranch. It's different from the city, I know." Anna laughed nervously, feeling the tension in her shoulders ease slightly. "Different is an understatement," she said. The words were true. The silence, the vastness, the smell of the earth. It was nothing like the apartment buildings, the constant hum of traffic, or the crowded sidewalks she had left behind. As they approached the house, Anna's eyes roamed over the property. She noticed the barn first, large and weathered, with hay bales stacked neatly inside. Then she saw the fenced area where a few horses grazed lazily, their tails flicking at flies. Chickens pecked at the ground near the coop, and a dog lay sprawled in the sun, watching her cautiously. Everything about the ranch spoke of order, care, and routine, yet also of isolation. It was a life that demanded hard work and patience, a life she had never lived. When they reached the door of the house, Tom unlocked it and stepped aside. "You can leave your things in here," he said, gesturing toward the small entryway. The house was simple inside, with wooden floors and furniture that looked handmade. A small kitchen led into a living area with a stone fireplace, and several doors led to bedrooms that were tidy but sparsely furnished. It was clean, organized, and efficient, everything a ranch house should be. But to Anna, it felt almost cold in its simplicity. I can sleep in the barn tonight," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm used to rough places and I don't want to trouble you." She tried to sound confident, but she could feel the nervous tremor in her hands. The barn had seemed warmer somehow, more welcoming, a place where she could be herself without worrying about appearances. Tom froze for a moment. He wasn't used to someone requesting to stay in the barn. Most visitors or potential brides would expect the house, the comfort, the amenities. Yet here was Anna, insisting on sleeping in the barn. He didn't know whether to admire her independence or question her judgment. "I don't think that's necessary," he said finally, his voice firm but not unkind. "The house is here, you can stay in the house, it's safer." Anna shook her head quickly. "No, really, I don't want to impose, the barn I can manage. I promise I'll be fine." Her eyes were earnest, pleading almost. She had learned from her city life that asking for too much could be dangerous, but here she was, trying to show resilience to prove that she could handle this new life. Tom hesitated. He glanced at the barn, then back at Anna. He thought of the cold night ahead, the animals, the unfamiliar noises that came with living in the wilderness. He worried, as any man would, about leaving someone so young and inexperienced out in that environment. But he also recognized something in her, a determination, a courage that was rare and unexpected. Finally, with a slow sigh, he said, "All right, if you insist, but the house is locked. If anything happens, come find me." He handed her a small lantern. "It'll get dark soon and there's no electricity out in the barn. Keep this with you." Anna nodded, grateful for the gesture, yet still proud to maintain her independence. She took the lantern, adjusted the strap over her shoulder, and made her way to the barn. The wooden boards creaked under her feet as she stepped inside. The smell of hay, horse, and earth was strong, but it felt alive, real, and comforting in its own way. She chose a corner, laid out the small blanket and bag she had brought, and began to make herself as comfortable as she could. The barn was quiet except for the occasional shift of animals, the soft clatter of hooves, and the distant sound of the wind through the trees. Anna sat down on the edge of a bale of hay, taking a moment to let it all sink in. She was far from the city, far from the life she had known, and yet she felt an unexpected sense of calm. Here, in this simple, rustic space, there was no pressure to perform, no rush, no noise. Here she could just be. As she lit the lantern, casting a warm glow over the hay and the animals, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. Every decision, every risk, every moment of fear had led to this quiet space. And though the night promised to be long and unfamiliar, she felt ready to face it. Meanwhile, Tom watched from a distance. He had returned to the house after helping Anna settle her things in the barn. Standing at the porch, he crossed his arms and studied her carefully. There was a stubbornness about her, a sense that she would not give in easily. He admired it, though he also worried for her. The wilderness could be unforgiving, and the night would bring challenges she had never faced. Yet there was something in the way she handled herself that told him she might just be able to survive it. As the sun disappeared behind the hills, leaving the sky dark and sprinkled with stars, Anna adjusted the lantern once more and settled onto the hay. She listened to the soft breathing of the animals, the occasional rustle of the wind, and the distant hoot of an owl. She realized that this was the beginning, not just of a new night, but of a new life. One that would test her limits, teach her lessons, and perhaps, in time, offer a sense of belonging she had never truly known. She closed her eyes, letting exhaustion take over. Tomorrow would bring work, learning, and perhaps more challenges, but tonight was a night of quiet reflection. She was alone, yet not lonely. She was far from home, yet strangely at peace. And though she didn't know what the future held, she was ready to embrace it. One step, one night, one day at a time. The barn, with its rough wooden walls and earthy smell, became more than a temporary refuge. It became a symbol of her courage, her independence, and her willingness to start over. And as she drifted into sleep, the distant sound of Tom locking the house behind her reminded her that, though she was on her own, there was someone nearby who cared, someone who might, in time, become a part of this new life she was beginning to build. The morning came slowly. Over the ranch, sunlight spilled over the hills, casting a golden glow over the wide fields and the barn where Anna had spent her first night. She woke to the sound of birds chirping and the soft lowing of cows in the distance. For a moment, she lay on the rough hay, breathing in the cool morning air, and felt an unfamiliar sense of calm. This was a world away from the city she had left behind, yet it felt alive, real, and full of possibility. Anna knew she could not waste the day. The ranch demanded work, and she needed to prove to herself and to Tom that she could handle it. She rose carefully, dusting the hay from her clothes, and looked around the barn. The animals were stirring, stretching, and preparing for the day ahead. She gently opened the stalls, checking on the horses, and offered them fresh water. She spoke softly, almost instinctively, to the animals, feeling their trust in her as she moved from stall to stall. The horse named Daisy, A large chestnut mare nickered and nudged her hand, and Anna smiled, feeling a small victory. Meanwhile, Tom had already begun his morning routine. He was outside, repairing a broken fence along the edge of the property. His movements were deliberate and practiced, a reflection of years of experience. Every now and then he glanced toward the barn, noting Anna's presence. He wanted to give her space, but he also felt a sense of responsibility that weighed heavily on him. It was one thing to bring someone to the ranch. It was another to ensure she survived the harsh realities of rural life. Anna's curiosity and determination led her to explore the barn further. She checked the feed for the animals, organized the tools, and even swept a corner to make it feel cleaner and more comfortable. Every task was small but meaningful. She felt a sense of pride and accomplishment that she had rarely experienced in her city life. Yet beneath her confidence, there was a current of worry. She knew that she had much to learn and that any mistake could have consequences. By mid-morning, Anna ventured outside, carrying a bucket to help with chores near the animal pens. The sun was higher now, warming her face, and the smell of fresh hay and earth was stronger. She moved carefully, mindful of the uneven ground, and greeted Tom as he approached. "You're up early," he said, his voice carrying a mixture of curiosity and approval. "I couldn't sleep much," she admitted, feeling the honesty slip out. "I wanted to get a start on helping." Tom nodded. "That's good. There's always work to do, and you'll learn fast if you keep this attitude." His tone was not harsh, but it carried authority, the authority of someone who had lived and worked in this environment all his life. The day passed slowly but surely. Anna followed Tom's instructions carefully, learning how to feed the animals, clean the stalls, and handle the simple equipment the ranch demanded. Her hands were sore by mid-afternoon, and her clothes were stained with dirt and hay, but she refused to complain. She felt a sense of pride she had never known in her previous life. Each task she completed made her feel stronger, more capable, and more confident in her ability to survive in this unfamiliar world. Despite the physical exhaustion, Anna's mind was constantly working. She observed Tom closely, noting his habits, his movements, and the quiet ways in which he cared for the land and animals. She realized that his reserved nature was not coldness, but caution, a protective shell built over years of solitude. She admired his discipline, though it intimidated her at times. By late afternoon, the sun began to dip toward the horizon again, casting long shadows across the ranch. Anna felt a sense of accomplishment, but also fatigue. She had never worked so hard in her life, and the reality of rural life was starting to sink in. Yet, she also felt exhilaration. She was learning, surviving, and proving to herself that she was capable of more than she had ever imagined. Tom, watching her from a distance, felt a mix of concern and admiration. He had expected her to struggle, perhaps even falter in the face of ranch life, but she was holding her own. He still worried about her safety, about the unfamiliar dangers of the wilderness, but he also began to see her determination as something rare and valuable. This was not just a visitor or a bride-to-be. This was someone with spirit, courage, and resilience. As evening approached, Tom suggested they finish the remaining chores together. Anna agreed, eager to learn more and to prove herself further. They worked side by side, moving with a quiet rhythm, communicating with gestures and brief instructions. There was a growing sense of mutual respect between them. Anna admired Tom's skill and experience, while Tom recognized her willingness to work hard, her ability to adapt, and her strength of character. After the chores were completed, Tom handed Anna a small towel. "You'll need to clean up before dinner," he said. "The house is locked, but I'll unlock it for you to wash up. You need rest too." Anna hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Thank you, I appreciate it." The dinner inside the house was simple but satisfying. Fresh bread, vegetables, and stew made from ingredients from the ranch. Anna noticed the effort Tom had put into preparing it, even though he often ate alone and preferred simplicity. They ate together in silence at first, the sound of their utensils on plates filling the quiet space. Anna felt a strange mixture of comfort and awkwardness, comfort from being in a warm, safe space, and awkwardness from the unfamiliarity of this shared meal. Finally, Anna spoke. "I didn't realize life here would be so different. It's beautiful, but also hard." Tom nodded, understanding her words more than she realized. "It is hard," he said. "It demands patience, effort, and care, but it also gives back. There's honesty in the work, in the land, in the animals. It's not easy, but it's real." Anna smiled faintly, feeling a connection forming despite the initial distance between them. She realized that living here would not just be about survival. It would be about learning, adapting, and discovering a new sense of purpose. After dinner, she returned to the barn to prepare for the night. She carried the lantern, lighting the way through the fading light, and felt a sense of quiet determination. The barn was still, the animals settled for the night, and the smell of hay and earth was comforting. She arranged her sleeping space carefully, making sure she had everything she needed within reach. As night fell, the sounds of the ranch changed. The wind rustled through the trees, the occasional animal moved in its stall, and the distant howl of a coyote echoed across the fields. Anna listened, alert but calm. She knew that life here would not always be easy, that challenges awaited her, but she also felt ready to face them. The hours passed slowly. Anna kept herself busy, checking on the animals, ensuring their water was full, and tending to small tasks that she had learned earlier in the day. She reflected on her journey, the choices that had brought her here, and the courage it had taken to leave behind everything familiar. For the first time in her life, she felt a sense of independence and self-reliance that went beyond what she had imagined. Meanwhile, Tom in the house watched from a distance. He felt a mixture of relief and concern. Relief that she was managing the ranch chores well, concern for her safety in this unfamiliar environment. Yet he began to realize that she had a resilience that matched the land itself, stubborn, enduring, and determined. By the time midnight arrived, Anna was exhausted but satisfied. She lay on the hay, listening to the quiet rhythm of the barn, and felt a deep sense of accomplishment. She had survived her first full day on the ranch, learning, working, and adapting to a life completely different from the one she had left behind. She closed her eyes, feeling both tired and alive, ready to face whatever challenges the next day would bring. The night passed quietly, the barn standing as a silent witness to Anna's determination and courage. She was learning the rhythms of ranch life, understanding its demands and finding a place within it. Tom, observing from the house, felt a growing respect for her. She was not just surviving, she was thriving in small, quiet ways that spoke of strength, character, and the beginnings of trust. As dawn approached again, Anna rose with the first light, ready to continue her journey. The barn, the animals, the wide-open fields, they were no longer strange or intimidating. They were part of her new reality, a world she had chosen to enter, and a world that was slowly beginning to accept her in return. The days at the ranch had begun to blend into a rhythm for Anna, but life there was far from easy. The morning air was crisp, and the sunlight glinted off the dew on the grass as she stepped out of the barn. She could hear the soft whinnies of the horses and the low clucks of the chickens as they began their day. The animals had grown familiar to her now, and she moved among them with careful precision, feeding, watering, and tending to each as if they understood her presence. But despite the small victories and the sense of accomplishment, Anna could feel the weight of the work pressing on her. Ranch life was not a gentle life. It demanded effort from dawn until dusk, and even the smallest mistakes could create serious problems. She had learned that a horse could be startled by a sudden noise, that water troughs could dry quickly under the sun, and that fences required constant maintenance to keep the animals safe. Each day brought new lessons, and each lesson reminded her of the fragility of her position on the ranch. Tom had been observing her quietly for several days now, and he began to notice something remarkable. Anna was not just surviving, she was adapting. She was learning quickly, asking questions when she needed guidance, and applying what she learned without complaint. Her determination was evident in the way she approached each task, carefully, methodically, with a quiet strength that even he could not ignore. Yet despite his growing respect, Tom struggled with his own reservations. He had lived a life of solitude, relying on himself for years, and he found it difficult to let anyone close, especially someone so young, so new, and so vulnerable. One afternoon, as the sun blazed high in the sky, Tom assigned Anna a task that he knew would challenge her. She was to move a group of cattle from one pasture to another, a job that required patience, skill, and an understanding of the animal's behavior. The task was not easy. The cattle were stubborn and wary of strangers. Anna took a deep breath, steadying herself before entering the field. She remembered Tom's instructions carefully, how to approach the animals, how to use the fence lines to guide them, and how to remain calm and confident. At first, the cattle were hesitant. They shuffled their hooves, lowing softly, and kept their distance from Anna. She spoke to them in a calm voice, moving slowly and deliberately. Sweat dripped down her face, and her hands were rough from gripping the ropes and opening the gates, but she refused to give up. She felt every step, every movement, and every decision was crucial. This was more than just moving cattle. It was proving to herself and to Tom that she could handle the responsibilities of ranch life. Hours passed, and Anna's determination never faltered. She faced challenges, cattle that refused to move, a sudden gust of wind that startled the herd, and the ever-present worry that she might make a mistake. But she adapted. Slowly, steadily, she guided the animals into the new pasture, her heart pounding with effort and anticipation. When the last cow finally stepped through the gate, she allowed herself a small smile of relief and accomplishment. Tom had watched the entire time from a distance. He had expected her to struggle, perhaps even fail, but she had succeeded where many would have faltered. There was a mixture of pride and concern in his gaze. Pride, because she had proven herself capable and strong. Concern, because the harsh realities of ranch life could still be unforgiving, and he knew there would be challenges she was not yet prepared for. That evening, as the sun began to set and the sky turned shades of pink and orange, Anna returned to the barn. Her body was sore and her clothes were covered in dirt and sweat, but there was a satisfaction in her exhaustion that was entirely new to her. She cleaned the stalls, watered the animals, and prepared her sleeping space with careful attention, as she had done every night. The barn had become more than a shelter. It had become her workspace, her sanctuary, and a place where she could prove her strength without fear of judgment. Tom, meanwhile, remained inside the house, reflecting on the day's events. He had spent years living alone, relying solely on his own skills and judgment. The arrival of Anna had been unexpected, even disruptive, yet her presence had begun to shift something within him. He realized that he was not just observing her work, he was observing her character. Her resilience, her courage, and her determination were qualities that he had long admired in others, but rarely encountered in someone so young. The following days brought new challenges. Anna learned to repair fences, mend torn feed sacks, and navigate the unpredictable behavior of the animals. She faced minor accidents, a stumble on uneven ground, a sudden kick from a startled horse, but each mishap taught her lessons in patience, care, and resilience. Tom provided guidance, sometimes strict, sometimes gentle, but always observant. He allowed her to make mistakes while ensuring that she remained safe. Their interactions began to develop a rhythm, a delicate balance between instruction and independence. One particular morning, a sudden storm swept across the ranch. The sky darkened, and heavy rain began to fall, turning the dirt paths into slippery mud. Anna was in the pasture, tending to the animals when the first drops hit her face. The wind picked up and the animals became restless. She moved quickly, securing gates and guiding the livestock toward shelter. The rain soaked her through, and the cold seeped into her bones, but she refused to abandon her duties. Tom arrived shortly after, riding a horse through the storm. He helped Anna secure the remaining animals, and together they worked through the downpour, their movements synchronized by necessity. By the time the storm subsided, both were soaked and exhausted, but the work had been completed successfully. Anna looked at Tom, her eyes bright with relief and pride. "You did well," he said, his voice carrying genuine admiration. "Most people would have panicked or waited it out. You faced it head-on." Anna smiled, shivering but satisfied. I couldn't leave them out there." The storm had been more than just a test of skill, it was a test of character. Anna realized that ranch life demanded courage not only in physical labor, but in the ability to respond to unexpected challenges with calm and determination. She also recognized that Tom's guidance was invaluable, not because he was controlling, but because he had the knowledge and experience to keep both her and the animals safe. As the weeks passed, Anna and Tom continued to grow in their understanding of each other. They shared quiet moments in the evenings, discussing the tasks of the day, the behavior of the animals, and the routines of ranch life. Anna began to feel a sense of belonging that she had never experienced in the city. She was part of a larger rhythm, a life that demanded responsibility, patience, and attention, and she was thriving within it. Yet beneath the surface of daily life there was an unspoken tension. Tom was still cautious, protective of his home and his heart. He had lived years in solitude, and opening himself to another person, especially someone so new and young, was not easy. Anna, for her part, respected his boundaries but longed for a closer connection. She wanted to be seen not just as a helper or a bride-to-be, but as someone capable, reliable, and worthy of trust. The turning point came one afternoon when a young foal became trapped in a fence. Its small legs were tangled in the wire, and it was panicking, struggling to free itself. Anna rushed to the scene, heart pounding. She spoke softly to the foal, trying to calm it while carefully loosening the wire. Her hands were scraped and bruised from the effort, but she refused to stop until the foal was free. Tom arrived shortly after, watching her with a mixture of concern and awe. "You've got courage," he said quietly. "Most would have frozen or called for help. You didn't hesitate." Anna looked at him, breathing heavily, and realized that this moment was more than just about the foal. It was a demonstration of trust, of her ability to face fear and uncertainty. Tom nodded, a subtle but powerful acknowledgement passing between them. For the first time, it felt as though the barriers between them were beginning to break down. That evening, as the sun set and the sky glowed with hues of orange and purple, Anna returned to the barn. She tended to the animals, cleaned her space, and reflected on the events of the day. She felt a sense of pride, not just in her work, but in the recognition that Tom had given her. The connection between them was fragile but real, built on respect, shared effort, and a growing understanding of each other's character. Tom, sitting on the porch, watched her from a distance. He realized that he had underestimated her, not her abilities, but her resilience, courage, and determination. She was no longer just a visitor or a bride-to-be. She was someone who had proven herself capable of surviving, adapting, and thriving in this demanding world. He felt a shift within himself, a recognition that perhaps she could be more than just a temporary presence in his life. As night fell, Anna lay down in the barn, exhausted but satisfied. The animals were calm, the air was quiet, and the lantern cast a warm glow over the hay. She reflected on the past days, the challenges she had faced, and the growth she had experienced. She realized that life on the ranch was not just about survival. It was about courage, resilience, and the ability to adapt. And for the first time, she felt that she was not just surviving. She was becoming part of something larger than herself. The barn, once a place of temporary refuge, had become a symbol of her strength and determination. It represented her ability to face challenges, to learn, and to prove herself in a world entirely different from the one she had known. And as she drifted into sleep, the soft sounds of the ranch surrounding her, she knew that the turning point in her life had arrived. She had faced fear, embraced responsibility, and begun to build a bond with Tom, founded on trust, respect, and a shared commitment to life on the ranch. The days on the ranch had begun to settle into a rhythm, but there was a quiet tension that hung in the air, one that neither Anna nor Tom could ignore. Both had come to understand each other in small ways. Anna through her perseverance, her courage, and her determination to survive in this new, demanding world. Tom through his careful observation, his guidance, and his protective instincts. Yet there were still walls to be crossed, unspoken fears and doubts that lingered in the spaces between them. One early morning, the sky painted with soft shades of pink and gold, Anna awoke before the sun had fully risen. She took a deep breath, inhaling the crisp air, and felt a strange sense of anticipation. Today felt different. It was not just another day of chores and routines. It felt like the day when something would shift, when all the efforts of the past weeks would reach a point of recognition. She moved quietly through the barn, tending to the animals as she had done every day. The foal she had freed days before nickered softly as she approached, and she smiled, stroking its soft mane. Each task she completed seemed to strengthen her confidence, not just in her ability to manage the work, but in her growing place within the ranch. She felt pride in the small victories, feeding the animals on time, mending fences, and maintaining the barn, and a quiet satisfaction in knowing that she was no longer a stranger in this harsh, yet beautiful environment. Tom was already outside, preparing the morning feed. He looked up briefly and nodded at her, a small gesture that carried far more meaning than words could express. Their silent acknowledgement spoke of a shared understanding, a mutual respect that had developed over days of hard work, challenges, and small triumphs. There was no need for grand gestures or speeches. The work itself had built a bond, and the bond had begun to take root in ways that neither could have anticipated. The morning chores were completed with efficiency, the sun climbing higher in the sky, casting warmth over the wide fields. Anna noticed a subtle change in Tom's demeanor. He was less reserved, less distant, and more willing to engage with her in conversation. They discussed the behavior of the animals, the plans for repairing fences, and the crops that would soon be ready for harvest. It was a natural, unforced exchange, one that reflected growing trust and understanding between them. By midday, a challenge arose that neither of them could have predicted. One of the horses, a strong and spirited animal named Buck, had broken free from his stall. He galloped across the pasture, panicked and uncontrolled, putting himself and the other animals at risk. Anna's heart pounded as she realized the danger. Without hesitation, she grabbed a rope, ran toward the horse, and attempted to calm him. Her voice was firm but gentle, and she moved with careful precision, remembering all that Tom had taught her about handling unpredictable animals. Tom arrived moments later, riding swiftly across the field. He guided her movements, offering instructions that were precise and calm. Together they worked in unison, a silent dance of skill and experience. The horse finally slowed, then stopped, allowing Anna to loop the rope around his neck and secure him safely. She was breathless, soaked in sweat, and her hands were scraped and bruised, but the sense of accomplishment was overwhelming. She had faced fear, acted decisively, and succeeded. Tom dismounted and approached her. "You handled that well," he said, his voice steady but carrying genuine admiration. "Most people would have panicked, but you stayed calm. That's not easy." Anna met his gaze, feeling a surge of pride and a quiet sense of validation. "I couldn't let him get hurt," she said simply. "I had to do something." That afternoon, the incident with Buck became a turning point in their relationship. Tom began to see Anna not as someone fragile or inexperienced, but as a partner in the work of the ranch, someone capable of handling the demands and responsibilities that the land required. He realized that trust had been earned, not given, and she had proven herself through action, courage, and dedication. As the days continued, Anna's confidence grew. She became more adept at handling the animals, managing the chores, and even anticipating the needs of the ranch before Tom could speak. She learned to repair fences quickly, carry heavy feed sacks with ease, and navigate the unpredictable terrain of the fields. Her hands were calloused, her clothes dirt-streaked, and her body exhausted, but she had developed a strength that went beyond physical endurance. It was a resilience of spirit, a determination that could not be broken by hardship or fatigue. Tom, observing her quietly, felt a shift within himself. He had spent years living in solitude, relying on his own skills and instincts to manage the ranch. The arrival of Anna had been disruptive, a challenge to his established routines and personal boundaries. Yet over time, he had come to admire her courage, her work ethic, and her unwavering commitment. He recognized that she was no longer just a visitor or a temporary companion. She was an integral part of the life he had built. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with shades of orange and purple, Tom invited Anna into the house for a meal. The atmosphere was quiet and comfortable, the simplicity of the setting emphasizing the sincerity of the moment. They shared the meal, discussing plans for the upcoming weeks, the work that still needed to be done, and the small victories they had achieved together. For the first time, there was a sense of ease in their interaction. The walls that had existed between them, built from caution, solitude, and unspoken fears, began to crumble. Tom found himself opening up, sharing stories of his past, the challenges he had faced, and the lessons he had learned from years of ranch life. Anna listened attentively, offering empathy, understanding, and occasionally a thoughtful question that prompted reflection. The conversation was simple, yet meaningful, and it marked a new stage in their growing connection. The following days brought a sense of harmony that neither had experienced before. Anna's presence was no longer a source of concern or uncertainty. She had proven herself capable, reliable, and strong, and her contributions to the ranch were undeniable. Tom began to trust her judgment, seeking her input on decisions and allowing her more autonomy in managing the animals and tasks. The partnership that had been tentative and cautious evolved into one of mutual respect and shared responsibility. One afternoon, a visitor from the nearby town arrived, a neighbor who had heard of Anna's arrival. They brought news of the local community, updates on markets for livestock, and tips for managing crops. Anna and Tom listened together, discussing the information and planning how to incorporate it into their work. It was a moment that highlighted the growth of Anna's role on the ranch, not just as a helper, but as an informed and capable participant in its management. As weeks turned into months, Anna and Tom developed a routine that was both efficient and comfortable. Mornings began with chores, afternoons with maintenance and animal care, and evenings with shared meals and quiet reflection. The barn, once a place of temporary refuge, had become a symbol of Anna's perseverance, courage, and adaptability. It represented the beginning of a life she had chosen, one filled with challenges, rewards, and a growing sense of belonging. The relationship between Anna and Tom evolved in subtle, meaningful ways. Trust deepened, respect solidified, and the initial caution gave way to a quiet understanding. They worked side by side, laughed together over small mishaps, and supported each other in the demanding life of the ranch. Each day reinforced their bond, and the experiences they shared, both challenging and triumphant, became the foundation of a partnership built on mutual admiration and reliability. One evening, as the sun set and the sky glowed with the soft light of twilight, Anna stood in the barn, reflecting on her journey. She had come to the ranch as a stranger, unsure of her place and anxious about the future. She had faced challenges, learned new skills, and proven herself capable in ways she had never imagined. The barn, with its rough wooden walls, earthy smell, and quiet presence, had witnessed her growth, her determination, and her courage. Tom, standing on the porch, watched her quietly. He felt a sense of pride and gratitude. Anna had brought vitality, strength, and perspective to the ranch. She had transformed not only the physical space but also the dynamic of his life. Her presence had challenged him, inspired him, and ultimately earned his respect. He realized that she was not just a companion in work, but a partner in life, someone whose strength and determination complemented his own. In the following days, the challenges of ranch life continued, but they were met together. Anna and Tom faced unpredictable weather, demanding chores, and the constant responsibilities of animal care. Each obstacle strengthened their bond, and each success reinforced the respect and trust they had developed. They learned to anticipate each other's needs, to communicate without words, and to support one another in ways that went beyond the practical demands of the ranch. By the time the season shifted and the first signs of autumn appeared, Anna had fully integrated into the life of the ranch. She had learned to ride with confidence, manage the livestock independently, and navigate the complexities of rural life with skill and determination. Her hands bore the marks of hard work, her clothes were often stained with dirt, and her body carried the fatigue of long days, but she had also gained something far more valuable: self-reliance, confidence, and a deep sense of purpose. Tom, observing her quietly, realized that the initial barriers between them, fear, caution, and unfamiliarity, had transformed into a deep and meaningful connection. Anna had earned his trust, his respect, and his admiration. She had proven herself capable in a world far removed from the city she had left behind, and she had become an essential part of the life he had built. As the sun set on a crisp autumn evening, casting a golden glow over the fields and the barn, Anna and Tom stood side by side, surveying the ranch. The animals were settled, the fences secured, and the air filled with the quiet sounds of evening. There was a sense of accomplishment, not just in the work completed, but in the journey they had shared. It was a journey of growth, trust, and mutual understanding, a journey that had transformed both of their lives. Anna turned to Tom, a soft smile on her face. "I never imagined it would be like this," she said quietly. "I thought it would be hard, but I didn't know I could feel at home." Tom nodded, a rare warmth in his eyes. "You've earned it. You've earned your place here, not just in the barn or on the ranch, but in life here. You've proven yourself and you belong." The barn, the house, the wide fields, they were more than just physical spaces. They were symbols of perseverance, trust, and shared effort. Anna and Tom had faced challenges, adapted to the demands of ranch life, and discovered in each other a partnership founded on respect, courage, and understanding. As night fell and the first stars appeared in the sky, Anna settled into the barn once more. She reflected on the journey that had brought her here, the risks, the fears, the hard work, and the triumphs. She realized that life on the ranch had taught her more than she could have imagined about herself, about trust, and about the value of resilience. Tom, inside the house, locked the doors for the night, but did not forget to glance toward the barn. There was a sense of peace in knowing that she had grown strong, capable, and confident. They had both changed, adapted, and found in each other a partner, a colleague, and perhaps, over time, something deeper. The journey that began with uncertainty, isolation, and fear had transformed into one of trust, accomplishment, and connection. Anna had discovered her strength, Tom had learned to open his heart, and the ranch had become a place where both of them could thrive. Life continued, as it always would, with its work, its challenges, and its rewards, but the turning point had passed, and the future held the promise of shared effort, respect, and understanding.